My name's Aaron Wise of the Wise Mortgage team. We are in our second podcast episode, which is amazing. And today we have Carmen and Tony on, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
Carmen and Tony work as a husband and wife duo in the Coldwell Banker office in Lincoln Park. I'm super excited to have you guys on.
We are excited to be here.
Yeah.
Thank you, Aaron.
I think we're going to get down into it.
Thanks for having us here, Aaron.
Of course. Of course. So we got a lot to unpack here, guys.
Wisdom, right? I've heard there's
yes.
a lot of wisdom.
Yes, we have some nuggets.
Good.
And I think what we're really trying to do here today is one of a couple things, but the main one is it's very difficult for people out there in this market to try to secure housing, right?
Yeah.
There's really no
Yeah.
argument against that anywhere, I don't think.
Yeah.
And so I feel like for somebody that's out there in the market that's maybe struggling with their realtor, that's maybe struggling with their lender, that's maybe just thinking about dipping their toe in, or they just want to go all in, I feel like we're giving them a good resource and something to latch on to that's real. It's not just, kind of diving in on the internet, doing, kind of a data search. I always equate it out like when my wife and I like to take trips, she will be the person that will go on and kind of look at all the reviews, look at where we're going, kind of get all the research done. Whereas I'm sort of like, how do I even know what's real? Is this review of this resort like a real review? Is it no good? Is it old? Is it outdated? Like I can't even, it's like, French to me. So what I'm trying to do essentially is just translate what's really going on to somebody that's looking to make a move.
Yeah.
Right.
I had somebody describe internet searching as like skipping stones, on the water.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's like you get a little, but you're not really getting in the water.
Yeah. You're not getting the bulk, the
Yeah.
bulk content, right? You're just enough to be dangerous. So
I mean, we're going to be dangerous on this thing, right?
I agree, but helpful as well.
Right.
Yeah. As we kind of dive into that, I think it's worth mentioning to start what a marketplace looks like, right? I have seen information I don't know if it was this week or in the most recent week or two, where Redfin came out and said that there are 500,000 more sellers than there are buyers right now. There's a ton of content about how it's way easier for a buyer to negotiate right now. Mm-hmm. It's not as difficult to secure housing because of that. And I've got to think, if I'm looking here in Chicago, that couldn't be further from the truth.
Well,
Would you guys agree with that?
Yeah, I mean it's a mixed bag. It's not as clear cut and as easy to understand. Think of it this way: you have, say, 80 degrees, a tub of water. It's hot, and you're dumping ice. I mean, if you were to take temperature at any given spot, it's very, very dramatic.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of what's happening right now. There's actually quite a bit going on. You're starting to see the consequences of the interest rates, being where they're at. You're seeing the consequences of just, shortages of inventory that are systemic. Every state, different regions, different environments, decisions that have been, set in motion for quite a long time.
Yeah.
And now you're seeing the consequences. So in Chicago, I remember we went to the National Association of Realtors conference here where
That was the Chicago Association, the Economic Outlook.
He's
Lawrence Yun.
Yeah, Lawrence Yun was speaking, and he was talking about kind of broad market. What's going on here in the Midwest is very different than what's going on in Florida. There was a lot of speculation, a lot of building, because they have different codes and they're a little more lax on regulation, whereas here we're like, you can't just build stuff.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chicago Fire, right? Because the Chicago Fire made it so that we're very particular about how things are built. We don't want just things to come up and go,
We are particular.
We are.
That is for sure.
And so there's a lot of thinking that goes into that, a lot of investment, a lot of management of decisions and thinking of forecasting. So we have not gotten so far ahead in inventory. And we were seeing a loss of population for a little bit.
Right.
Well, guess what? Everybody's coming back.
Chicago's back, baby.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody's coming back. We saw something like 100,000, an increase of 100,000, I think, in 2024.
Yeah.
Which is a significant turn of events led by immigrants that were coming here.
I feel like that information needs to get out a little bit more.
Yeah.
Because if you ask, the casual person on the street right now, I think most people don't think that. What's in the news and what's being pushed out there is that, especially by certain, groups and whatever, is that Chicago/Illinois is losing a ton of their population. So
look, the short answer to your first question is you can't make decisions for your own personal real estate needs based on national news.
Right.
Because the first 3 principles of real estate, location, location, location.
Yeah.
You need to know your specific goal is, in what bracket, in what area. You need to get granular.
Yeah.
Because really in Chicago, in some instances, it's not just neighborhood to neighborhood, it's block to block.
Yeah.
It's the difference between whether or not you can convert a 2-flat to a single-family home, or whether you can adapt that single-family home to multi-generational living, and what's around there to support that. So there is no one-size-fits-all kind of headline on where the market is. Listen to all those moving parts.
Yeah.
There's zoning, there's building, there's supply chain, there's, migratory patterns and human geography and demographics. There's politics. Let's not say it's not a factor. It is. So there's an awful lot to consider, and it's not useful, honestly, on a practical level, to take a national headline and go, well, got to get out of the game, or, well, time to jump in. That's just not how that's going to work for you.
It's really, I feel like you can only do a certain amount of research. You're almost kind of getting the definitions of what's going on versus the content of what's going on if you're kind of doing your internet search, right? Because let's face it, most people start, on their phones, on their computers. They try to get an idea of what's going on. Good example, like I have people call me up all the time and they're like, hey, I heard these things about how can I get an FHA loan? I'm like, well, first of all, you don't want that. But it's kind of just like the buzzword, right? It's the thing that people hear about and they think they should ask about it, that type of thing. So
At every party we go to. So are there foreclosures coming up?
yeah. There's short sales coming up. Yeah. So I think as deep as you need to go on stuff like that, that's why I think that it's so important to be able to work with somebody that can get you those fine little details, as opposed to just kind of explain things to you on a macro level. I do think it comes down to all those other factors that you were talking about. And then on top of that, some of those things are going to change. Some of them you have no control over. Some of them you might have a little control over. But what you do have control over is, hey, I want to buy a single family home in Avondale, Logan Square, right? So you've got this little pocket, what type of property you're looking for. You can look at the data and see what those properties were listed for, what they ended up actually selling for. You have to have somebody help you look at all those little details. Because if you try to go in there and you just look on your phone, you just pull up whatever's selling in that neighborhood and you try to just base it off of that. And I've got a lot of friends that are doing that too.
This is one of the things, Tony, you won't hear me say this often as a husband and wife duo. This is one of the things Tony is really good at. It's one thing to inform. It's another thing to educate and demonstrate. And when you're working with a real human being, they go out and they show you that thing that you saw on the internet. This is how it looks in real life.
It's interesting as you're saying all of this. I'm reflecting on, some of the recent changes, as to how we conduct ourselves, with business practices, with requirements of, contracts and stuff like that. What's interesting is it really hasn't been a deviation for us. We've always taken a holistic approach to what is home buying, the same way that you do, and I know this for a fact. When you talk to our clients, mutual clients, and you're trying to figure out what it is that they're trying to achieve, it's not just numbers. It's, okay, what is your overarching goal?
You sort of start from the foundation and build up, right?
It's having conversations. It's saying, okay, because you just said, well, you're trying to stay in this block. Well, why are you staying in that block? And then it's qualifying people, understanding what their needs are, listening to what they have to say, holding them accountable, educating them in the process. I mean, our job is not just, let's open a door, help you sign a contract. It's a lot more complex. It's understanding your needs, offering as much insight and expertise in areas so that you can avoid some of the common pitfalls. You want to buy a 2-flat. Well, why do you want to buy a 2-flat? You think it's going to be easy to manage a property? Have you ever managed a property? Have you ever had to evict somebody,
Yes.
So, it's not as easy, and it's a lot more complicated. And so, listen, some people are meant to do it, and it's a great way to grow. But some people just don't have the chops to handle that. And then you have to have those conversations with them and say, listen, are you prepared to handle this? Have you considered this? And then maybe people say, well, I'm not trying to talk you out of succeeding at what you're trying to achieve.
For sure.
What I want to make sure is that when you're done with what you're trying to achieve, that you look back at the whole experience and say, he was helpful to me.
For sure.
And he was instrumental in getting me to succeed.
This is what we were talking about. All of the things that we started with, the challenges in the market, the things that aren't easily predictable and things like that. If you haven't built trust with your team, if you don't have trust in us that we're good partners to you, if our clients don't have trust in their team, then when things aren't easy, when things don't go well, when there's a hiccup and somebody says to you, okay, don't worry, we can adjust, we can address that, or here's what we're going to try next, you might not have the confidence to actually give that your full steam.
Yeah.
And honestly, in any market, but certainly in a market with this many variables, trust, huge. Very
Agreed.
important to your success.
It's as difficult, I feel like, as it has ever been. So I feel like if that's the case, you've really got to, it sounds just cliche, but you're really just teaming up with your client, and they're teaming up with you, and you're full steam ahead. It's not easy to just kind of fall into winning a contract these days. It might change.
You have
it
to
might
be a
not.
little
But
selfless,
I would agree.
You have to remove yourself from anything that you might personally have to gain. Because let's be honest, right? We're all in this. This is how we feed our families. This is how we pay our mortgages. But it's not the only thing that we're there for.
I would like our grown adult children who've left the house to stop coming over for food. I don't know how you feel about that.
A little shout out to one of our kids who comes over with a bag and takes paper towels. Part of the thing when you're helping somebody is to really listen to what they are trying to achieve.
Yeah.
And listen. Sometimes I've had people approach me and say, I want to pursue this, and then I'll say, listen, I don't get it.
Yeah.
I'm not pushing back because I don't want you. I'm here to help you.
Yeah.
But you said this when we were in early conversations about your stated objectives.
Yeah.
You said that.
Yeah.
And you said this, and these things do not
It's
align.
not lining up.
Yeah. So is this one of those things where we're going to put something together and then later you're going to reflect back on those things?
Yeah.
So let's have that conversation now.
Or have you learned through the process that what you thought you needed isn't right?
Right.
Yeah.
That you can handle a little bit of a fixer-upper if you get the space you want.
It
or
can
the
be
yard you
evolutionary,
want.
right?
It can be.
It
can
is
be.
part of the process, and you're not necessarily going to be able to do that on a scroll, right?
Yeah.
You have to IRL some of this stuff.
Yeah.
And then you find that, it's not as important to me to have a perfect kitchen, but boy, I really love having a backyard. I want to plant a veggie garden. That stuff matters.
Do you find that those initial buyer meetings, those consultations, let's sit down, let's take the time to get into these things, do you feel like that kind of got pushed to the side right around 2020?
So it's
still stayed that way?
Interesting that you say that. Our orientation process,
Yeah.
buyer, seller, lesser, whatever, around an in-person meeting.
Yeah.
One of us, not me, had to get tech savvy really fast about how to do video calling and all this kind of stuff, sharing your screen, blah, blah, blah. We intentionally did not abbreviate or eliminate our orientation process.
Yeah.
At the beginning of the pandemic, we shifted to a digital format. We did not take pages out. And what we say at the outset of that orientation, whether it's in person or on screen, is tell us how much time you have. This is how much time we think it takes. And then
That's really good, like
if
asking
it goes
up
a little
front.
bit longer, it's based on whether or not you have questions. I will tell you that we can get the thing done in like 20 minutes, and almost always they go over an hour because once they dig in and you're giving them all this information and this knowledge, and they're learning things that they hadn't anticipated or that they're excited about, they stay. They ask questions.
They engage.
They process it. They engage,
You also have to look at it from the flip side, right? Like, you're here for something. Let's ask you from the very beginning.
Yeah.
What are you looking to achieve in this meeting? Like, here's what we'd like, the process as we understand it, and usually when we have an initial consultation with a client is, tell us what you're thinking, but before we get into the deep nitty-gritty of it, let's give you a sense of what this process looks like.
Yeah,
so
high
we'll lay
level.
out a map in front of you, right? Effectively talk you through that process, lay it out so that you have an understand of, I'm going here. This is the pathway that I have to get there. These are the obstacles. So how do we tackle them? And if you're not prepared and, you get to point B and you never had a conversation about that, you'll be blindsided by itself. So when we're having conversations, one of the other things we're saying is like, what are you trying to achieve? What knowledge do you want to walk away with? Are there questions that we can answer? Is there information that we can give you so that you're getting something productive out of this? Now, we're not one size fits all. Some people, they're driven by, quick decisions. We're more methodical. It's interesting. We've been studying and kind of part of our analysis of our clientele, who we market to.
Yeah.
One of the things that we find is we tend to work with a lot of well-educated people in education and medicine. Attorneys, we do a lot of work with attorneys. We've sold homes for realtors, which is interesting because these are people that already understand the process, yet they understand what's at stake.
Yeah.
So when I invest my money, I really thank you, Peter, for helping us out. It'd be a mess if I didn't have him, and I'm grateful for the expertise that he lends, and so I let him be the expert.
Yeah.
I understand everything because he answers my questions and brings me along. That matters to me. So I try to do the same thing in our business.
Yeah.
And I think that's something I've appreciated about your business model as well,
Yeah,
is that you
thank you.
don't deliver the information one time and then expect everything to domino from
Yeah.
there. You're always asking how things are going. You asked us at the very beginning of our partnership, hey, how do you like to receive information?
Yeah. How do you want to be
that kind of
communicated
stuff.
with?
I just think all of those things matter. It is not a one size fits all for everybody.
Yeah.
And I think again, that's one of those ways that you build trust with people so that later on, when they're in a position where the weight of the situation is, on the line, you can give them your advice and they can feel that confidence. This is somebody who knows me, who knows what I want, who's been supporting me all the way.
Yeah.
So I can trust that they're giving me good advice.
I found that, especially in those first one or two conversations, if you can kind of slow things down a little bit, and by the way, most realtors that I work with are sort of in this same kind of, I don't know, you attract how you are, whatever the right term is, right?
That's right.
I feel like we want to get methodical and organic about those conversations as opposed to, here's my list of questions I have for you. It's more just let's bob and weave through the conversation. Let's slow it down and let's talk to people like they're people, not assume they know anything.
Yeah.
What I found is the more educated people are, the more they listen, which is interesting. When I started, I thought, oh, well, this guy's the CEO of, Boeing. He's not going to want to talk to me for a long time, number one. Number two, he probably knows most of this stuff. It's usually the opposite. They're so deep into their profession, they realize you're deep into your profession. And so they're just like, hey, tell me what I need to know. Give me the nuts and bolts, sprinkle some more on there. Let's do it. You got 15, 20 minutes. Let's go. Yeah. And they appreciate that sort of slow roll. So interesting thought. And then I think also, and this is something you guys do, is you try to give the playbook or the map or, however you want to kind of look at it. But it's sort of like the overarching, just map to the process, right?
That's right.
What I've found is that once people hear all that, usually they'll get the bulk of it, not all of it, but they'll get the bulk as long as their hair's not totally blown back, because that happens sometimes. Sometimes they're just overwhelmed and you're like, so usually the approach for me would be, okay, I gave you that, huge thing. You don't have to remember all of it. What we're going to do, and my wife Emily makes fun of me for this, I say we take it in small chunks. Okay. She thinks I need to write a book called Take It in Small Chunks. So
baby steps.
Yeah. But I say small chunks. And so what that essentially is okay, we're going to take this in phases. So you don't have to think about everything all at one time. We're going to talk about the next 2 or 3 things that are going to happen, and then we're going to do those things, and then we're going to regroup.
Yep.
And then we're going to talk about the next 2 or 3 things, and then we're going to regroup. So that way, once those 2 or 3 things happen, you say, oh, you know what? Aaron told me I was going to need to do a second round of earnest money. And that was, because I've seen, frankly, where like a lot of agents put contracts together and they don't fully talk about that second round of earnest money, which is a really interesting topic, probably on its own. And so I'll say, hey, that after, X amount of business days, once you do that inspection, you've got that, and it's a juicy one, right? It's 5% less the original 1,000 or whatever. Because a common question is, when do I have to come up with, my down payment and cost and all that? So
where's my money going? Who's going to get this? What is this?
There you go.
What is this for?
So imagine if I didn't tell them, and
right?
What's your reaction? Okay, if you're a buyer and you get that phone call like, hey, you need to go deliver $22,000 to Coldwell Banker today, you're like, what? What? Aaron said I needed X amount of dollars and I just needed it at closing. Right. Versus if I would have told you 3 days ago, the same thing is going to happen. So I feel like the interesting concept there is the real estate transaction from A to Z, 80% of it is pretty standard stuff, right? It can sway and bob and weave.
It's standard to us, Aaron.
Right, for sure.
Standard to us.
That's exactly what I'm saying. Yeah.
Just that little simple thing, understanding that what it is that means. Right?
Yeah.
You're asking somebody you're buying a home from to step to pack up all their stuff,
Yep.
to get a movers,
Yep.
to schedule movers, to pack everything.
You're
to
moving your whole
make
life.
arrangements, get out of Dodge
Yeah.
on X date.
Yeah,
right?
on that date, by the way,
Right.
not a day
Right,
later.
right. And
Yeah.
you want to make sure that there isn't anything left behind.
Yeah.
Not a piece of wood that you don't want
Yeah.
or whatever the details
Better
are.
sweep that sucker, too.
Not to mention when you had your inspection, you wanted them to do this and you wanted it done to that standard.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
they're asking you to put something in a pot somewhere to assure them that they're doing all of this.
For sure.
And you're moving forward with good intentions.
For sure.
Hence, you're doing it in
But if they
earnest.
know it's-
I mean,
yeah.
but that's what it's
Yeah.
all about, right? Like,
Agreed.
so, okay. I understand now.
Yeah.
It makes sense. To
I
me.
told clients that the contracts are all written based on litigation, right?
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
a
There's a line for
13-page
every
contract
lawsuit.
because, yes, somewhere along the line somebody sued about that item, and that's fine. That's how we learn, how to prepare a contract,
Yeah.
right? We don't want misunderstandings. We want
And how to
everything
protect
spelled
you.
out.
Right.
And I think lender and realtor processes are informed by years of experience with panic attacks.
Yes.
And so,
Yeah.
to your point, one of the things that we do as part of our orientation and then our care of a client from start to finish and post, 3 months later, my financial advisor says, hey, you need this for your taxes.
Yeah.
Who are you going to call? It's going to be one of us.
Yep.
We don't just present at that in-person meeting and then go, okay, let us know when you're ready to start.
Yeah.
We present at that in-person meeting. You get a hard copy of that presentation, and I email you a digital.
Yeah.
In academic circles, they call that differentiation because everybody responds to receipt of information a different
Differently.
way. So when you get that contract prepared, we send you a congratulations. Congratulations, you just signed a contract. Here's what's going to happen
Yeah.
next.
Yeah.
On this day, we got to do this. You're going to have to talk to Aaron. You got to
Yeah.
talk to your attorney. There's an inspection. We can all the deadlines. And then every time they hit one of those milestones, we go back.
Yeah.
Congratulations, inspection's all done.
Yeah.
Here's what's coming next.
Uh-huh.
And to be honest with you, it feels a little extra, but once you've been doing this, as you both said, for so long, it's so back of the hand for us. It is
Yeah.
not for a person who's new,
Yeah.
who's also doing their full-time job and planning a move and
Yep.
dealing with kids
Yep.
and whatever it is. So our job really as part of this is not just to build trust with a client, to build a relationship where we're all working together towards the same goal, is to take them with us through the process that is completely foreign and new to them.
Yeah. So the process essentially is mostly the same. It's just if you know the next things that are coming, it's a lot less jolting when you're going through them.
That's right.
I just find that interesting. There's two ways, if you take two people, they're going to get to the same finish line. One's going to have a certain kind of experience due to how, they were explained things. One's going to have, that same person could have a totally different experience if they just didn't get that roadmap. Right.
Have you ever
So,
worked with clients who've purchased before and had a really bad experience with a loan?
very frequently?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've all met those people.
Definitely.
And it's a bummer, right? Because you have to overcome their kind of skepticism about the process because they haven't had a good experience.
I agree. I think initially in the first couple segments you do, and then
Yeah.
once they realize, man, that first time really shouldn't have gone like that. That's an anomaly.
That was not cool.
This guy actually or this gal knows, how it's really supposed to go and can drive the bus the way that it's supposed to be driven.
Well, and we were talking earlier about even when you're working with a really great team and you compose a really terrific offer
Yeah.
and you submit in a competitive market, if there's 35 offers going in on that place,
Yeah.
there's 34 chances. I'm not great at math, but there's 34 chances you're not going to get it. And that
Yeah.
feels bad. But if you're working with a team that's taking care of you and doing all their best to keep you informed, you probably knew
Yeah.
that might be happening. And your team should be ready to say, okay, let's dust ourselves off and get on with it. What did we learn from this experience? How can we do better next time? What can we change in our search criteria to get us
Yeah.
where we want to go?
So I absolutely love that whole, I don't like it when people lose, but I like that concept of we need to sort of build that in, strategize, because it's very rare that somebody's going to go out on a Thursday, love the first place they see, put an offer in on Friday, win it by Sunday, close in 30 days.
It'd be super cool, though, if we could get a couple of those in
Man.
the...
2016, yeah.
As you're speaking, my
Your ears are
language.
perking up like, 2015
love
was a long
language
time
right there,
ago,
man.
wasn't it? Yeah. So I
I
feel
miss
like,
the old days of just
I know.
negotiating, going back and forth, and
Yeah.
I'm gonna let them sleep on it.
Yeah. See how it goes.
Trust me, guys. Let them sleep.
got
on
it.
this
Let
one
them
tonight.
stew.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now it's like, ooh, what are we gonna do? How bad are we gonna do this?
Yeah.
The
Lengths that we go to try to help our clients win right now
Oh, it's
are,
brutal.
yeah, I was telling somebody in the car, that we were talking about an offer that we didn't win. And I said, I could have taken the agent out on a date twice, and we just wouldn't have won that thing.
I'm going to tell you, we had a
couldn't have
place
done
in
it.
Palmer Square, I think it was 2 years ago now, and the creativity of the offers was just off the charts, and
Yeah.
one of them has stayed with me.
Yeah.
The place that we were selling was a family home. It was a multi-unit building, had been home to multiple generations of families and multiple configurations.
Yeah.
And the agent who had prepared this offer for herself put together just, I mean, you know, we know how to construct an offer for
Yeah.
ourselves. That's a phenomenal offer, all these great things. And in addition, she said, listen, I know what this place means to your family. I will schedule a photo shoot after we close, but before I do anything to the house, bring the whole family, and we'll take a picture of the whole family in front of the place.
That's cute. Number
and
one.
I just was like, wow, what a great
Yeah.
idea. She didn't get it.
Yeah.
I felt
No,
so
but you know
bad.
what? Sometimes
If it's a tie, she was going to win.
No,
you
no,
know,
for
or if
sure.
it was close.
For sure.
But you
That's
know what? I'll tell you, there's a flip side to this too, because it's not just what we do in the process. And I think this is when you're buyers working with a buyer, there's also a flip side to this. If you're a listing agent, there are things that you can also do to help alleviate some of this stress that we as
Yep.
agents feel on the flip side. A good communication, having a plan in place. Sometimes I walk away from these things thinking, is it possible these people that are representing somebody are actually doing them a disservice?
Yeah.
Because communication is key, right? So, for example, when you submit your offer, you're trying to get a simple confirmation that things are being received, getting some kind of a sense of when you might expect some kind of a timeline, so you can go back and manage expectations and really kind of
For your client, yeah.
put your client. And that serves actually the seller side too. Because if everybody understands where we're at, we're open about, transparent about the process, it gives everybody a little space to breathe and allow for things to kind of occur and people to do their due diligence on both sides. And even when we don't get something, smart agents, oftentimes people that we work with regularly will reach out and say, listen, hey, congratulations. I'm glad that you sold it. It was a beautiful house. You did a great job.
Yeah.
Thank you for communicating with us along the way,
Yeah.
for sending those notes, giving us some update as to where things are at. Now, we don't do that just because we want to, right?
Yeah.
Because our clients that are hiring us to sell a home have an expectation that we're a reflection of them.
Yeah.
That's right.
Right? So we're going to be respectful and professional when we're handling people in the outside world.
That pays dividends, y'all.
It does. And you know what? Things don't always work out.
Yeah.
You'll have a deal where you think you put something well because, yes, the numbers look great and everything's okay. And then, you know.
And then they didn't get their mortgage with Aaron.
Yeah.
It's
There you
a
go.
disaster.
Things happen,
Yep.
right? And when
They went on the
when
internet.
these things happen, guess what? You have to have a backup plan.
Yeah.
But if you respectfully handled yourself and you were cordial with the people that didn't, and you say, listen, we'd like to offer you the opportunity to be in the backup position.
Yep.
Things happen. We'd reach out to you, you know, and margins are tight. We want you to succeed if you move forward. So here's
Yeah.
how we can offer you some things that maybe you can work with to build on your next approach.
Yeah.
Things fall apart. You got a backup, and people are working with you in good faith.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not just about looking forward. It's about kind of looking to the sides, thinking ahead, being dynamic in your approach and cordial when you're dealing with people. These are the things that differentiate people that are professional,
Yeah.
people that just, you know.
Dial it in. I will also say that to that point, which I think is really important in your line of work, you're not always on one side of the coin, right?
Right.
So I may be rejecting you today, and tomorrow my guy may be making an offer on your place.
Oh, yeah.
And if I haven't been good to you,
Oh, yeah.
you have the opportunity not to be good to me. The truth is, the answer to all of this at the policy level, at the nitty-gritty level is we're all in it together,
Yep.
right? We just had a deal that was kind of on shaky ground because one of the parties that was representing the seller wasn't a great communicator. And our clients were getting, you know, kind of more and more agitated thinking, something's wonky here. The seller's not doing what we would expect the seller to do. And I said, hang on a second. We finally had let's stop texting. Let's talk.
Yeah.
And it was actually the seller's doing everything. The seller repaired the thing you asked them to repair. The seller had the tenants move out. The seller's packing. What you're hearing is this other person's tone of voice, how they're communicating things. It's making you think that the seller is not doing their piece.
Right.
The seller wants to sell and they want to move. They're taking all the actual actions that go with that.
Yeah.
And you want to buy. Let's bring everybody back to ground.
So it's the
kind of work
approach
through
and
it.
the almost like a tone of voice
Sure.
type thing?
I had an English teacher once, my shut the door experiment. We walked in the class. Thank you, Mr. Shively. And he said, okay, today we're going to talk about, elocution and presence and tone. And he said, Missy, can you shut the door? And she was about to get up. And he goes, shut the door. And she stands up. And then he looked at somebody else and he goes, shut the door? And he did that like 4 or 5 times. And finally he yelled at her.
Yeah.
Shut the door. And she it's Catholic school. So everybody was like, we're always rattled. And she goes back to her seat after she shuts the door and he goes, you see how my tone of voice communicated something different every
Each time.
That's one of the things we all have to be expert in.
Yeah.
Tone.
Yeah.
And on that subject, Aaron, that's why I'm always grateful to you when we're working with you, because when we are putting offers out there, I know that you're proactive. Phone call, you send a message.
Right.
You try to make that contact, and you do it in a very intelligent way. I know you're bombarded, you're swamped.
Right.
I'm not trying to monopolize your time.
I do start it off that way. And it very much diffuses them.
Right.
Because you know what they say? Oh, I know it. Like, you're telling me. It's like it gives you that immediate common ground.
Just the relief.
Yes.
You're just not another person that doesn't get it.
Yeah, and we're all feeling it, but it's like, all right, let's bring it out.
Yep.
Give me 45 seconds, and I'm going to tell you how great we are, and they laugh. And they're like, and then you run it down, and I do always say this, not to go on a total tangent, but I always say, the biggest fear for a seller is that your buyer isn't going to perform.
Yeah.
That's right.
And so I feel like when we're out there, when we're putting offers in, when we have mutual clients, it's convincing the other side that we are going to perform, period. And there's contingencies in place for the things that they're worried about. And I do feel like when you have a reputation for performing, that's really that's half of what a listing agent is looking for. It's how are these people communicating? Is the offer solid and all that good stuff? You got to be in that ballpark. But if you're a person that's known to go from A to Z, you're gonna be in there. You're gonna be in that conversation.
Yeah.
I'm going to add something to that because we've talked a lot about in this conversation working with people who are well educated, that they appreciate a well-informed process and everything like that. I'll add that hardworking people recognize hardworking people.
Yeah.
And they're not always people with fancy titles and a lot of formal education, but they're people who know the difference between surface and substance. And when you're working hard for someone to get something done for someone, they get that. They feel that and they get that. Our business has always included a good percentage of people who are working class people, who are first generation people, first time buyers. Those are our people. That's how we got in this business.
Yeah.
We got our licenses because Tony's mom and dad wanted to buy a house, and they didn't trust anybody.
Yeah.
They'd already been duped multiple times by, other bad actors in other areas of their life. And Tony said, okay, Dad, I'm going to buy a house, and I don't want to have a house without you having a house. So I'm going to get licensed, and I'm going to take you to do it. And his dad said, okay, if you get your license, I'll go do it. Now, every member of his family owns a home, and everybody who lived in the building where they lived owns a home. Their kids own homes.
My dad was just showing. I was an accountant at the time. My dad just kept showing up with people, man. He's like, "Here's my son. Here's so and so."
This is how it's done.
Oh, he
Get him
was
That's a good story.
the greatest lead generator of all time. Tony's dad. You can get yourself some of that.
I was working at a law firm as bookkeeper, office manager, and accounting department there. It was like, I literally had to quit the job because I was like, I can't keep up with the stuff.
Well, and he was promising. It wasn't like, call my son. He was like, no, my son will take care of you.
Right.
He did.
I think that's a lot of people. Well, actually, I'll say this. Some people that come into this business come into it because they think it's easy. If you think about the idea of what we do, it's on the surface, it seems very easy.
Sure.
Which is why you don't think about the complexities. For example, you're on some app and you're looking and there's listings and what do I need you for, right? Okay, I could click on it and go see it myself.
Yeah.
Well, it's a lot more complex than that. Have you given some consideration or some thought to the fact that just like social media and all of these other places have algorithms that drive what you see?
Yeah.
Have you considered that maybe you're being manipulated by that data?
Yeah.
That you're on some platform and somebody's best interest somewhere else is there ahead of your best interest?
I am shocked that you're saying
Really?
that the
Internet's a lot of times people don't even think about, you have to sometimes be critical in your thought about how these things come up. Okay, so let's take a big company like the one with the Z, right? Very, good at putting data out there, and I think they're wonderful in that regard. But what is their business model? They make money off of selling leads.
Yeah.
So how do you get people to react and click on their, you got to frustrate them a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you frustrate them, and then at some point they realize they need something.
There's an angle.
Yeah. So it's not just them, it's all of these different companies that do these things. And so this is why you want somebody who's on your side.
Yeah.
And when you're talking about what we do, we're basically like the equivalent of the transaction manager or expediter, right? We're holding your hand, walking you through, and everybody along the way has their role. An inspector will go there and he'll do his job in a couple, hours and whatever, and give you his written report, and they'll be there to answer questions. They're done. Loan officers are secondary to us in terms of the length of involvement, right?
Yeah.
You're meeting with them sometimes months ahead of time before they're even prepared to qualify to buy, right? You're having those conversations. You should go back and pay this off, do this, reduce that, improve this, so that you can be in this place where you're telling us that you want to be. And those conversations could take months. Sometimes it can take years,
Yeah.
Which is a total mystery to me. I'm embarrassed to say at this stage of my career. What do you do at the beginning, and what do you do once they're ready to actually move forward with a purchase? Like, how much of your work is that orientation, qualification piece, and how much of your work is, oh, now we have a contract, I gotta hustle?
That's a good question. No one's ever asked that
You're
before.
talking about proportions? Like
Yeah,
you
I'm
spend
saying, like,
half the time on the front end.
You and I do.
Well, lately I feel
so
like
much.
most lenders have been like,
Well, you're doing your job like
another
8 times
pre-approval
per
specific
client.
to this property. Like when the odds are 25-1, it's like, it's a heartbreaker, man.
But like, is it like a 15-minute kind of boilerplate, hey, I'm going to talk to you and get you started, and then I don't really hit the ground until there's a contract? Or are you doing some part of your hustle way early and then waiting months and months for something to materialize?
I think that is a tough question to answer, but in a minute nutshell, probably. It's different every time, but I would say most of the heavy lifting is in the beginning because you are building the trust. You're convincing them that you're the one they should be talking to. You're giving them all that background information. You're talking to them about them. Like, I do more work on the upfront than I've ever done. I mean, I'm talking to clients about neighborhoods that they want to go into, and if they want to buy a single family home in, Ravenswood, what that's going to look like. I mean, there's a lot of carryover or a lot of crossover, overlap, that type of thing. So plus, frankly, I have to be right 1,000% of the time.
Yeah.
I mean, if I'm wrong, we've got problems, right? So, sometimes that's easier than others. So, it's way more heavy lifting if somebody is, they just became self-employed or they just started a new commission position or whatever. But if you're a teacher, you've been working there for 30 years and, you're a plumber and you're making, $35 an hour and you work 40 hours a week. It's very quick, easy. So most of the work is just in the conversation. It's talking about the payments, talking about how much cash you need, and then it can kind of go quiet for a little bit. And it sort of depends on how many offers they're putting in, how fast they're diving in, what their timetable is. Lately, it's been, hey, we need to get pre-approved and we're going to see a place this weekend and it's highest and best by Monday at 10 a.m. And they're calling me Thursday night at 6 o'clock. Sometimes that bothers people. I freaking love it. As long as they're mentally prepped and ready to go, I like a good deadline. I want to get it. I want to get in there. Even when there's a bunch of, this is our 5th offer, this is our 6th offer, I see it as an opportunity to win something. So
you're getting people who are coming to you after they've lost with other folks, or are you getting people
once in a while?
Really?
Yeah. For me, it's an inflection point in the process. Once you've lost that first one, that's one of the most important rapport building opportunities with somebody throughout the process. And we've talked about this just a little bit. It's when you lose that first one and you weren't prepared, or if somebody didn't tell you that could be something that was going to happen, it can be crushing. This is like, oh, this is the place that we were going to live for the next 30 years. And now it's just not. So I always try to say, hey, listen, I literally call them on the phone. It's not a text. It's a, hey, I heard you lost. Don't worry. This is, what's meant to happen should happen. I'll throw around some cliches here and there, but I'll say this is part of the process. You got to get back up on that horse when you're ready. Some people, that's the next day. Some people need some time, whatever it is. Give me a holler. We're going to be ready for you when you're ready to go. And I feel like, again, that just diffuses some of the sadness, frustration. That's a tough one.
We actually
Right.
include that as part of our initial orientation, both with sellers and with buyers.
Yeah.
We're going to proceed, full steam ahead, assuming that it's going to be a straight line. But if it isn't,
Yeah.
what you need to understand is that happens.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yep.
We have built-in systems to address that.
Again, telling people up front so
Yeah.
that way, if and when it happens, they're prepped and they're like, oh, you know what, Carmen
Not
said
just
we
up front,
might
but
lose one.
along the way.
Yeah, yeah.
Because
Yeah.
we have these conversations all the time. I'm like,
Yeah.
you know what? I just want you to know this is going to be competitive. We're going to put our best foot forward within reason. You also don't want to. You don't want to just win. The victory has to be in context. It has to
Yes.
work for you. So then you're going to put your best foot forward. And if this is in the cards for you, if fate has it that this is what's meant for you, it's still not done.
Yeah.
We still got to go make sure we check this house
Yeah.
out, man. We got to get the emotions out of it. We got to make sure there isn't any mold in the attic. We're going to make sure there isn't some structural problem that we're not aware of. I mean, we try to educate consumers when we're out there with our clients. Try to make sure that when they're looking at homes and viewing homes, that they're not just looking at surface level aesthetics. We're looking at furnaces. We're looking at roofs. We're looking at kind of structure. We're looking at foundations. We're thinking deeply about all of these things so that we're...
I am picking out paint colors. I am looking at fabrics.
Do you
I
like
am
those
buying
things?
plants.
Do you like those things?
Yeah, I don't care about the furnace. It's not my department.
Yeah, yeah.
And I am so happy about that. I'm so happy I'm not in the furnace department.
Yeah, I don't like unpleasant surprises,
Yeah.
so I like to try
He
to
is in the furnace
anticipate them.
department, and that's why. He gets on the roof.
Yeah.
I do not.
I do want to give you one plug before we wrap this thing up. I feel like when we were speaking, remember when you showed me that big pile of offers?
Oh, yes.
You had said something where, and I'm curious just kind of what you guys think about this and how delicate you have to be. When let's say you're going in, you're advising a buyer on, where we think we need to be at and how that conversation goes when they say it's listed at 7, you're advising them to go to a certain number.
950.
They're comfortable.
950 is your number.
That seems to be the magic number. I can't remember your exact words, but I think you said, I will submit that offer. Now, I don't think that's going to be enough for us to win here, but let's put it in and just kind of see where we're... That whole conversation has got to be like telling a seller that they need to clean up because it's disgusting everywhere. It's like, you
think-
really got to bob and weave through there, right? Is that
the
true
truth
or is that easy?
At the very beginning, we talked about this idea of informing, educating, demonstrating,
Yeah.
right? Which you do on the sales side, you do it on the buy side.
Yeah.
That conversation this is what the market data presents. Market data is always backwards. Right?
Yeah.
So you're looking at things that happened 3 months ago and things have progressed. Here are the trend lines. You give the client all the information. Then you educate them on how to read that and analyze that. That offer that they're making that is probably not going to be a winner, that's demonstration. And so we don't necessarily try to talk them out of it. We don't even tell them it's a bad idea. We tell them this is how we're going to determine whether or not this strategy is the
it's
successful
effective.
strategy for this kind of a purchase.
Yeah.
And if it is, awesome.
So
And
you're
if
using it as
isn't,
a data point, more or less, right?
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I feel like one of the things that we do, we tell people very frequently, I don't sell homes. I think that's a misconception that we as realtors sell homes. Homes sell themselves. You walk into the door, you have your needs. I just help you understand what your needs are, help you reconcile those things, help you think critically about those things. You ultimately will tell me that you want to pursue something.
Yeah.
Yep.
Once you've told me that you want to do that, then I'm going to give you some pushback because I don't want to put a deal together that isn't well thought out, right? It's not because of me. It's because I want to make sure you're getting this thing right.
Yeah.
You start incurring attorney, cost or inspection costs, and you got a lender working on, and then things don't work out, and that's a loss to you.
Right.
So I want to make sure you're getting it right. So one of the things that we're talking about when we're doing this is here's the data set. Okay, so here are recent sales. You need to understand the patterns that are occurring. So sometimes I'll go in to pull up some statistics to try to demonstrate graphs and inform people as to where are the trends. Everything changes constantly.
Yeah.
You got seasonal markets. It's funny because I always think people should be more active in the summer.
Yeah, and they're not,
And they're
especially
not.
at the end.
And they're not, which drives me insane.
Yeah, vacation,
because
school prep.
everybody's on vacation,
Yep.
kids are out of school, they're at the concerts, they're this and the other. In the meantime, we were just fighting for houses a few weeks ago, and all of a sudden you're like letting it go. And this is the time to go in because everybody's taking a back seat now because they're all doing this. Strike while you can.
Yeah.
And so the people that do stay focused and listen to what you have to say tend to react that that way.
Yeah.
But most realtors that I know, people that are investors, they tend to buy in the summer and or the middle of the winter when it's snowy and nobody wants to be outside. That's when I have bought our homes. You know?
Does not make for great move-in time.
No,
True.
it doesn't.
True.
No, but
What if you can get a deal?
Yes,
right?
you can get a deal.
Everything we've pretty much talked about has sort of like wrapped up into you need to have a frickin' pro when you're doing this. Because if you're
100%.
using Uncle Jimmy, because he has been licensed, and sorry if anybody has an Uncle Jimmy that's listening to this, and he's been licensed for 10 years and does a deal every year or two to help a relative.
Yeah.
This is not a market for
that. No.
No, this is a market where you are actually separating the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yep.
You know what's funny? I sell homes for a living. You know, that's my profession. I would never sell my own home. I would hire somebody.
You got to get yourself. I will tell you, me doing my own mortgage is a nightmare.
Yeah.
I am my own worst.
Yeah.
I think you just know how the sausage is made. So to be able to remove yourself from that, I feel like there's value there. And I'll be the first person to say.
And get a clean pair of eyes on your situation, right?
For sure.
I really think that's one of the great benefits of working with a professional in any field is you know what your goals are, you know what you want to get, you know what you want to spend, you know, but you know all your own stuff. But you don't know how it's going to be looked at when it's not coming from the inside. And that's what a good lender and a good broker and a good inspector, when their turn comes, will do for you. It's that clean set, taking all the emotion out. Yeah, your plan is viable, or ooh, your plan needs an adjustment. Let's work on that.
The one thing, and this could be a sort of something that could sort of illustrate how crazy this market is and how it's block to block, property to property, neighborhood to neighborhood, et cetera, et cetera. Literally this last weekend, I had 2 different buyers, totally unrelated, going after 2 different properties. We talked about this just a little bit. One of these properties, single family home up on the northwest side. I think it was listed, I want to say like in the high 6s, 660, 670. Again, single family home on a nice block, et cetera, et cetera. Then you've got buyer B going after a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom, 2300 block of West Huron. Okay. Good neighborhood, pretty standard condo. The differentiation between offering on property A and property B could not be any different. If you are looking to purchase a single family home in we'll just say a nice established neighborhood, and it has a 6 or a 7 handle on it, that's what everyone wants. Everyone wants
Wear a
that.
helmet.
Absolutely. Shoulder pads, the whole thing.
Hazmat suit.
You need to know that going in. And if you don't, it's going to be a rude awakening. So I feel like you have to get educated on that with somebody that's been in the trenches and know that, okay, if we're going after that property, we're going to be one of 15. And so that process is going to be way different than a 2-2 at the 2300 block of West Huron. And I can tell you, buyer A lost, did not win, went $120,000 over the list price. Let me say that again.
Didn't I tell you $950? Didn't I say that?
Yeah. Helmet, shoulder pads, they went all in and didn't win that deal. Buyer B goes after the 2-2 on Huron and is the only game in town.
Yeah.
Doesn't negotiate. Saw 4 properties, put an offer in the next day, won the next day.
Yeah.
Done and done.
You know, Aaron, your person on the northwest side who's looking for a single family home is in a very different place in their life, looking for a different set of circumstances than your person on Huron. And that's one of the things that you do in that critical orientation piece.
Yes.
Because you know that your person who's going for the 2-2 on Huron might have the budget for the place on the northwest side, but that's not the life they're living. That's not where they're going with their time and their money.
Yeah.
So, yes, that's how the market is. It's that bipolar, and really, that's the great thing about being in Chicago, right?
Yeah.
There's enough business for everybody. There's enough, kind of breadth of experience for everybody. You just have to know what you're dealing with and be prepared to hustle for that client under those circumstances.
Understanding why that happens is also important. In certain communities, you'll have a set amount of transients is occurring. There are some communities that people move into when they're starting families, and then they intend to stay there for 10 plus years while their kids go through the public school systems, and so you have less transients.
Your turnover is going to be a lot less, right?
And then there's other communities and neighborhoods and buildings where you have condos, and people don't intend to stay there for 4 or 5 years, right? You go there, you're single, you got your first place, you're married, damn, no, now
Gotta
you
go.
got a kid, you got to go. You don't have enough space. Your goals are changing.
Yeah.
Interest rates have been impacting these transients, right?
Yep.
Now you have people that are locked in like ourselves, where you're in the twos, and you're like, kids are all out of school. Yeah, we could probably stay put for a little bit until we feel like we're at that place where we really. So transients, even where maybe it would have occurred in the past, it's happening. Then you're talking about those things. Then you're talking about any given community can have a set amount of inventory that's left over in different, flows, right? So like say multi-unit. In our neighborhood, I think there's only like two units that are actively for sale.
Yeah.
Even though it's multi-unit dense.
Yeah.
Yes. And historically, since we've been doing work there for upwards of 25 years.
That makes me sound old, say 10 years.
Yeah, I should say 10 plus years.
Yeah, 10 plus
But
years.
like that.
In that whole time, I don't think I've ever seen anything less than maybe 14 or 15 at any given snapshot. It speaks to a real shortage of inventory. Then you'll say, well, I'll go out and I'll show stuff in the suburbs. And in certain suburbs, I'm doing the showings and hey, can you give me some feedback? And I can sense a certain tone of desperation. Hey, well, if there's any interest or if there's anything that, do you think I can do to improve our situation here in terms of, I'd love your feedback.
Could show up at the showing and not put it on lockbox. This is step one.
That
I'll
makes a
tell you
difference.
something. Those people in the suburbs had a really kind of chaotic roller coaster because they were not prepared for the exodus during the pandemic. And they, to their credit, knowing a lot of folks who work those markets hustled to absorb all that work.
Yeah.
They did it brilliantly. There were a lot of people moved. And then what happened is city folk left the city because there was a bit of a panic in the air. But a lot of those folks didn't intend to have suburban lives.
Right.
So they're coming back.
Yeah.
And now it's making it harder on those folks in the suburbs to move their inventory because they don't have the same pool of people kind of grabbing, and there was some prospecting being done and people doing rehabs thinking, I'm going to get that big number, and they're not.
Yeah.
And that's
all
heartbreaking.
of this goes to your point, Aaron, about how geographically, you're one block over
That's
and
right.
the dynamics change.
Yeah.
School districts on one side versus another makes a big difference, you know. Proximity to the blue line, proximity to the brown line.
Yeah, public
those little things. I mean, is it just enough for you to walk there? In the winter, when it's really cold, or is it like now you're just far enough where you gotta wait for the damn bus?
Yeah.
Because I'm willing to pay a little extra for that.
Like a walking distance
And
for some
so-
people is from here to the curb.
Right,
for other
right.
people, it's a 20-minute walk.
I feel that.
And I have this
feel that.
conversation. I'm like, these e-bikes are great.
Yeah.
These little scooters, they'll get you there much faster. You don't have to put in as much sweat. You can still get to work without smelling funky.
Hey,
so
you
we have to
heard
have those
of,
conversations.
Have you heard of blue lining?
No.
So I was just reading a thing about
Blue
this.
lining.
It's blue lining,
Yeah,
right?
blue lining.
That's a blue lining is some providers of services to support housing are retreating from areas that are suffering from too much environmental chaos. Insurance providers and in some cases lenders,
Interesting.
suppliers are saying we don't want to be involved in these areas where there's so much volatility in the weather because the risk to us is greater than the potential benefit of participating in that market. And guess who's not having to deal with that? Your good old Midwestern Chicago.
That's interesting.
Is not seeing that. And it's another one of the things that's triggering a return to Chicago.
We talked to some people on the East Coast.
Yeah.
And Florida, where they're starting to see.
It doesn't. It's not shocking, right?
No, it's not. I mean, the sea levels are rising. You're getting more intense hurricanes. You're getting changes in climate.
And the
some of these
fires out
patterns
on
are
the West
changing.
Coast,
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah,
a big
I mean,
deal.
even right now, there's fires in Canada.
Yeah.
I mean, this is not stuff that.
It's not so remote anymore.
Yeah.
It's happening with some
And
frequency.
it's affecting people because of their. The truth
Yeah.
is, some people are environmentally conscious, but
Yeah.
what's end up happening is when they get their insurance renewal, need to minimize it.
Yeah.
Like then they're starting to pay attention because they're like, oh,
My sister is paying more than $1,000 a month for homeowners insurance.
where does your sister live?
Florida.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're starting to see that in California.
That's
now,
great.
too.
Yeah, it's an issue
Yeah.
because you know what? If you can't get your insurance, you know what you can't get?
I mean, think about that.
You can't
I
get
mean,
financing, right?
That's right.
So it's a big deal.
So just big ups Chicago, I'm just saying.
Well, we have our taxes we get to look forward to, which, by the way, that's a whole other podcast episode of what we think is going to happen when that bill comes out in August. I don't know if you know a lot of people that are sort of
Happens at a bad time because a lot of people kind of like pulling away from therapy and the medical field in general. And I feel like a lot of people are going to need to avail themselves
I would agree.
of some support systems.
It is going to be a thing.
It is going to be painful.
I think there's a big thing where people don't understand how it affects your mortgage payment too. So all of a sudden they'll get that new bill in the mail.
Oh, yeah.
And so they kind of get double hit. So essentially, you probably already know this, but the way that works is when your tax bill goes up, your mortgage company pays the bill for you, and it was more than what it was supposed to be. So they're going to come back and say, hey, listen, you owe us the $2,000 or the $3,000 in the differential in the bill. Yes, we'll divide that by 12, no problem. So your payment's going to go up $300 just to get that back. But then also
we need
to make
for
this
next year.
for next year too. So
right.
we need to raise it another $250 to $300. So all of a sudden, new mortgage payment comes $500, $600 more. I don't know if if y'all haven't been paying attention, but it's $8 for a pint. So everything is crazy, right? So whatever your sort of, litmus test is on that, if you get, $500 or $600 a month for somebody is a pretty good chunk. So I think we're going to start to feel that usually that happens. Most servicers will do their escrow account analysis at the end of the year. Normally that's an October, November thing, depending on when Cook County gets their crap together and sends out the bill. So that's something that's kind of coming for good old Chicago. So we'll see what that looks like. So.
Yeah, and I'm no big fan of taxes. I'll just say that. However, I am a big fan of city services that support a big city like ours. Mm-hmm. And I do think we all need to do a better job of explaining what a person is getting for their taxes and reminding folks that while prices are going up for people, prices are going up for everyone. Yeah. Including governments that have to buy fuel for all those buses, who have to pay for all those municipal buildings, libraries that people avail themselves of. Yeah. The county hosts, for the tiniest percentage, one of the most brilliant forest preserve systems in the entire country. Yeah. And that system, by the way, is going all electric with their vehicles. We know somebody that works for them, and there's a little bit of investment that goes with that. Yeah. So what I want to say to homeowners who are going to freak out and have, a lot of adjusting to do there is, so are we. Yeah. We get it. Yeah. It's a personal thing. There's a lot that you get for what you contribute, what we all contribute to the common good. And I hope that we can all remain focused on pitching in to keep things healthy and positive in Chicago. Now, if Chicago's not doing a good job of spending its money on the right stuff, then let's go get that taken care of. And I'm all for that as well.
Amen.
I love Chicago, man. All I have to do is travel a little bit, and I'm like, I love home.
Let's go.
Yeah.
I love our alleys. I love the fact that we don't have garbage in the front of high rises. And
trees. We have trees.
We have plenty of green trees. I love our grid system. Yeah. I love our fresh water.
Yeah. I do love leaving to take trips, whatever. But when you see the skyline coming back in, it's kind of like a
delish.
Sort of a deep breath sigh. Like, all right.
Yeah. I love everything about this city, even the messy parts. It adds texture and color to our lives. I think oftentimes the thing is that people sometimes misunderstand things.
Sure.
As it relates to taxes, listen, you look at societal problems at large, right? And almost everything circles back to us needing to have a population. So you can't keep pulling money from public resources. You want to have libraries. You want to have a police force that responds and the fire department that gets there when you need them. You want to make sure the streets are paved and all of that. And you want workers to get paid a living wage when they're doing those things. So it costs more money, and we just have to think about wealth disparity. Yeah. Being the greater problem. Not necessarily the fact that these things have to be provided. It's people just need to make more money in general, which means somebody's got to stop taking so much of it, So it's a little bit, it's a complex problem, but I always feel like cities are, and municipality and government sometimes, gets the bad rap. But I don't know.
Who was it that said, I can't remember who said it, that democracy is like the worst form of governance there is, except every other on the planet.
Yes, except the rest.
I love the city, man. I had some water come into our house once during some bad storm, and I was like, "What is this? I've never experienced." I called, the non-emergency number. Within maybe 45 minutes, somebody was at our door.
Really?
3 o'clock in the morning, these guys all out there with floodlights and a tent around the thing.
They walked into our house and showed me what it is, So I showed him water was coming up through the drain. Yeah. He's like, oh, let me go check and see what's going on. He went outside, opened up the sewer, and he says, we have a sewer collapse. Sewer literally collapsed. Yeah. He says, we're about to rebuild it, don't worry. I went inside. They set up a tent in front of my house with lights. I don't know where these people all came from, but they showed up. Within maybe a total of 5-6 hours, they reconstructed the sewer in front of my house.
Monsters, Inc.?
Yeah.
when the guy has the sock thrown on him, and then all of a sudden, like this whole crew of people come
Yeah,
up.
so you know, I that really, you know, it's not until you have those kind of things happen to you,
and you sort of
you know, where
recognize it.
you start having a different perspective on things.
Yeah.
So you know, I appreciate the fact that I can call the fire department when my neighbor's place is burning down.
Yeah.
It keeps my place from going.
That's
so
true.
all I'm saying, look, I'm not saying I want taxes to go up, people. I'm just saying it's
Yeah.
not quite as bad as people think it is.
Well, thanks for tuning in here today. This is our second and super successful podcast episode. So today we touched on everything from building trust with clients to neighborhood information to affordability issues to pretty much every single reason under the sun that we need to find and hold on to a good realtor and a good lender
Yes.
and just a good real estate team in
Yeah,
general.
team building.
100%. I think that when you're trying to invest in probably the biggest asset that you're ever going to invest in, you need to have the A team helping you every step of the way. So, Carmen, Tony, thank you very, very much for spending some time today.
Aaron, thank you.
Of course. If you are out there looking and you are just trying to find somebody good to latch on to, get good, solid information to be able to make a move, whether it's buying a new place, selling a place, renting a place, just trying to gather and get educated, please reach out to us. We're here to help. Carmen and Tony, I've known you guys to be just super customer facing. And for me, again, most of the people that I talk to and deal with on a daily basis, we all kind of do the same thing, which is wrap our arms around whoever we're working with and make sure that, you know, they're going down the right path. They're thinking about things in a correct manner and looking at things through the correct lenses so that way they can make the right decisions for themselves and their families, right? That's really
That's what it's all about.
what we're trying to do.
Not a very complicated thing when you think about it.
Yeah, especially with us, right?
Yeah.
That's right.
So until next time, Aaron Wise signing off. Thank you, guys.